In the last video, I explained how I created two lists that were created from the XML data stored in a data file. And I did that using the getElementsByTagName method. And I put the names of the tags that I was examining, that is in the XML file, things like title and link. I put those as a string argument to the getElementsByTagName method, and that creates a list of all the elements with those identifiers, that is, all the title nodes of the XML file, and it creates a list which I assigned to these two variables, title list and link list. I also, in passing, mentioned that these were array variables. That's not, strictly speaking, correct. They are lists, and they look like arrays, and they work like arrays. They are sequential, so I can count from 0 to the number of items they contain, as in this for loop. And as with a normal array, I can use square bracket notation to obtain an item at a specific index, and that's what I've done here. But when I checked on the developer documentation on mozilla.org, I discovered that in fact the getElementsByTagName method returns a node list, or in fact it can return an HTML collection. The distinction is not vital for our understanding here, and if you want to read about it, go on to developer.mozilla.org to read the full official documentation. The important thing to know is that the list returned is a list of nodes, and that is structured according to the document object model as a list of nodes. Now, nodes can be thought of a bit like in a file browser. Here I've got the Windows Explorer, but any file browser that you use to browse a disk is normally structured as a set of headings, and you can think of these as nodes with subnodes which can be expanded, and as you drill down into them you will find different information that they contain, and the information they contain in terms of a file browser is the contents of that directory. But think of the file structure as shown in the file browser as a list of nested nodes. And that's not really surprising, because if you look back at the rss.xml, this is my XML file, you can see that that's exactly what I've got. I've got an outer node, a channel, and I drill down into it, and I have a number of items. You could think of each item as being like a folder or a directory on disk, and they contain yet sub-items, the title, link, description, and so on. Now, my code gets the first child of each specific node, each node that is obtained by iterating through the link list. Now let's have a look what first child is. Now, according to the documentation, first child is a reference to the first child of the node. So it's the first sub-node. And then what do I do then? Then I get node value, so that's the value that is contained in that node. And this all comes from the structure. It maps onto the structure of my original data. And you can see that if you use the debugger of your web browser. I quite like the debugger in Firefox, so I just explain how to use that. So I select Firefox Web Developer Debugger. I switch to the script file. I put a breakpoint just by clicking in the margin here inside this for loop and refresh the page. Up pop these windows to let me examine the data. The thing that I'm interested in, well, let's have a look at what's actually stored in this linked list at index 0. That's the first item. My code says first child dot node value. Press enter to evaluate that, and it shows it's the string that I stored in the XML and which was read from the XML data. If I change this to index 1, so that's how I've processed the links, and the same is true of the titles. In my JavaScript, they're read in from the XML file. The list is created. The list is a list of nodes, and the nodes contain the elements, the information from the subnodes, the the individual tagged data, for example, between title tags and link tags.